Do you want to find out which of these two Bino harnesses is best suited to you and your personal hunting style? Well, I'm going to examine and rank these two packs across 21 different categories. And then I'm going to detail why I personally prefer one of them over the other. And if you stay tuned to the end, I'm going to let you know how you can win one of these packs. Welcome back to The Mindful Hunter. I'm your host as always, Jay Nichol. And today we are going to compare two of the most popular Bino harnesses on the market. It's the Alaska Guide Creations against Marsupial. Now before we dig into the review, as always, we got a little bit of housekeeping. So, as most of you know, I've launched my new community platform, Mindful Reviews. So you can find this at mindful-reviews.com. Not going to spend a lot of time on the details. Go to the website. It details everything there. I will say the community is growing much faster than I expected. There's phenomenal conversations going on over there. From this point forward, I get all my community feedback and direction for the reviews I'm going to do and how I do them and what elements I look at from that community. So if you want a voice in the type of things that I look at moving forward, that's where you want to go. Also, I raffle off almost all of the gear I review. Only members can participate in those raffles, and lifetime members get entered into free draws every 3 months for big ass, super cool, premium hunting gear prizes. So that's enough of a shameless plug for Mindful Reviews. Trust me, I'm putting everything I have into that platform, and it's well worth taking the time to join. I always give a little blurb about tribalism and the effects of emotionally based psychological marketing before each review video, because I know we all have our favorite products, and hearing me criticize or take a dump on one of your favorite products is sometimes hard to take. So all I ask is that you recognize we all have bias and we all have a need for a sense of belonging. And that a lot of the reasons we buy products are not as technical as we think they are, and they're far more emotionally and socially motivated. In that, we feel a sense of belonging or closeness to certain brands because of the way they speak, the way they market, the way they behave. And when you hear negative things about those brands, you tend to take them personally. So all I'm asking is that as we go through this review, you kind of take that little voice in the back of your head and just recognize it for what it is. Apply a little self-awareness and try and look at things as objectively as possible. Both of these packs are highly premium products. I would argue they're the best two Bino harnesses on the market right now. I think there's 2 or 3 other ones that are really vying for that 3rd and 4th spot, but I feel pretty strongly these are the number 1 and number 2 players. So even if I pick one that is not the one that you own, or you end up liking a different one, I would say that no matter how you hunt or what you do, if you own or buy either one of these Bino harnesses, you're buying a high quality product and you're not going to regret it. Also, as objective and quantifiable as I try to make reviews, there's always going to be an element of subjectivity and personal opinion. I'm going to do my best to call that out. But lots of time, this is coming down to how things fit my body, how I choose to hunt, how I choose to interact and engage with the product. And a lot of that is hyper-personal. So, as I said, I will do my best to call that out, but just keep that in mind when you're watching the review. Nothing will ever replace getting product in your own hands and getting it out into the field for your own research. Now, another point that I would like to add before we dive into the review is that I've been fortunate enough to test both of these very thoroughly in field circumstances. So I've owned the Alaskan Guide Creations for 6 years, and I've owned the Marsupial for well over a year. I've had the Marsupial on at least 5 or 6 hunt, and I've had the Alaskan Guide Creation on far more than that. So winter, summer, dry, wet, I've had a chance to put both these harnesses thoroughly through their paces out in the field, both scouting and hunting. I tend to do really long reviews. Don't know how long this one's going to be yet, but bear in mind that these are highly technical, and I'm doing my best to be as in-depth and thorough as possible. However, there are chapter markers down below, and I will do a little recap thing at the end. At the end of the day, I don't really care about the retention figures on YouTube. I care that you get some kind of value out of this video. So if it works better for you to skip ahead and ignore the categories I've chosen that don't really pertain to you, or go to the end and just watch my final thoughts, that's fine too. I just wanted to share that I have found there's a real need for more objective, more thorough reviews from non-biased individuals. I'm not paid by Alaska Guide Creations. I'm not paid by Marsupial. I bought both these Bino harnesses. I paid full retail price. Neither of the companies knew I was reviewing them, so I'm incentivized in no way, shape, or form throughout this review. For the 21 categories that we looked at, they are price, color options, size options, weight, purchase experience, American bonus, Canadian bonus, capacity, materials, construction, harness system, fitting/adjustments, accessories, noise, reliability of lids, optic fit, durability, impact protection, water resistance, hardware, and archery compatibility. And here's how the scoring system worked. I either assigned a score of 1 or a score of 2. If you got first place in a category, you get 1. If you get second place in a category, you get 2. At the end of the day, the Bino harness with the lowest score gets first place, and the next score gets second place. There are some categories where they've tied. I've either tied them at a 1 or tied them at a 2, depending on why I think they tied, if it was for good reasons or bad reasons. But I've really tried to limit the number of times I did that. I think it was maybe 3 times at most. And there are very good reasons for why I chose to do it that way, and I will explain them on a category by category basis. So up first, let's detail the marketing specs of the Alaskan Guide Creations Kodiak Cub Max. So one thing to recognize about Alaska Guide Creations is they're a little bit different than some of the other Bino harness manufacturers in that they have a bunch of different models instead of 1 or 2 models with a bunch of different sizes. So the Kodiak Cub Max only comes in one size. Now what makes it the Max is that it has this bottom pocket here. And what makes it the Cub, it has the 2 big side pockets here. Now, one thing to keep in mind is that I actually bought this Bino harness in 2016. I couldn't believe that. I went back and found the original invoice and have had this thing for 6 years. So when I first bought it, I did my own buckle upgrade. So what I did is replace these main buckles here with auto-locking buckles. Now, on the newer version of this pack, you get an upgraded harness system. It's the Generation L system that has some unique new features. And they've also started shipping with the auto-locking buckles, so you don't need to do your own upgrade. But there are, and I'm going to call them out when we run into them, but there are some slight differences between the model I've reviewed and the model that's currently available for purchase. If anything, in my opinion, the one that's available for purchase right now seems to be a little bit better. I really like the upgrades that they've made, and I may at some point upgrade to that newer model if this thing ever dies on me. So the new one comes with the auto-locking buckles. There's built-in tethers into the shoulder straps. New one comes with that as well. The Bino dimensions will be up to 6.5 inches long, 6 inches wide, and 3 inches deep. This is the Max pocket along the bottom, zippered pockets along each side, elastic closure for the lid, mesh padded harness, zipper mesh pocket in the back for maps or cell phone, built-in rangefinder pouch on the front. Now, I will say before we dive into this review is essentially a maximalist versus minimalist approach. And so I'll do my best to note as we go through, like, why, there seems to be a different design philosophy of the Alaskan Guide Creations than there is with the Marsupial, where the Marsupial is like trying to be as slim and as minimal as possible. The Kodiak offers, from Alaska Guide Creations, offers more features and gives you more options. Now let's take a look at the marketing specs for the Marsupial case. So, as I mentioned, you can see right away that the Marsupial is a much more minimal case. It's thinner, more compact, more streamlined, and basically off of their website. So full containment system. That's the thing I will note about both these packs are full containment systems. I hunt in a variety of weather conditions, and things like the FHF, the original FHF Bino harness don't interest me, or any of those super minimal Bino harnesses that don't have full enclosure for the Bino compartment don't interest me. I want dust and weather protection as much as possible. So fully contained, designed. It's a magnetic system. It's lined with fleece on the inside. There are stretchy side pockets. There's room for a cell phone in the back. Moley webbing attachment on the back. Includes a padded mesh harness. And you need to add an additional rangefinder pouch, which clips on to the harness system through some Moley webbing. And as far as the internal capacity, it is 5 3/4 inch wide, 2 3/4 inch deep, and a max height of 7 3/4 inches. All right, first category is price. So the Alaskan Guide Creations clocks in at $115 USD. The price for the Marsupial harness is $129 USD, and the rangefinder pouch is an additional $36. So totals $115 for Alaskan Guide Creations, $165 for the Marsupial. So the Marsupial is about $50 more. So Alaskan Guide Creations takes first in this category. Up next, we've got color options. So the Alaskan Guide Creations comes in 10 colors in total. So Coyote, Cryptek Highlander, Multicam, Mossy Oak Breakup Country, Mossy Oak Bottomland, Ranger Green, Foliage, Realtree Escape, Realtree Edge, and Blaze Orange. The Marsupial has 6 different options: Ranger Green, Coyote Brown, Foliage Green, Wolf and Coyote Blend, Multicam, and Blaze Orange. So Alaskan Guide Creations is going to take first place in this category for giving you the choice of up to 4 more different color options. Next category is sizes. So Marsupial is going to take first place in this one because, as I mentioned earlier, the Alaskan Guide Creations harness only comes in one size. And if you want a different size, then you would just buy a different style of harness from them. Whereas the Marsupial comes in 3 sizes: small, medium, and large. Next category is weight. So Marsupial did have an advertised weight for the harness of 14.5 ounces, but the Alaskan Guide Creations did not have an advertised weight. So normally in this category, I would assess their weight honesty. So I would compare the advertised weight rating to the actual weight rating when it showed up at my house. But because we don't have this information for Alaskan Guide Creations, I can't do this. Plus, I don't think there might be advertised weight for the rangefinder harness, but I don't think there is. So it kind of also means we can't do a full-fledged weight honesty ranking on either of the harnesses. At the end of the day, the Alaskan Guide Creations weighs almost exactly 1 pound, and the Marsupial weighs 1.2 pounds. I was kind of surprised by this. Just because of the minimalist nature, I thought the Marsupial was going to be lighter. But I think due to some stiffer backing material in the Marsupial, it actually comes in a little bit heavier. Again, I've owned the Alaskan Guide Creations for quite some time, and I'm not sure exactly what the newer models would weigh. I'm assuming they would be pretty close to the same. Up next, we're going to discuss purchase experience. So for the next 3 categories, in my previous reviews, I've scored these categories: purchase experience, American bonus, and Canadian bonus. I've decided that's not really fair anymore because it impacts the overall ranking of the product, and it's only applicable to certain people who might be viewing the review. So instead, I'm going to leave these categories in. I'm going to speak to them, but I'm gonna leave the ranking 0 across the board for all 3. So purchase experience is my way, for those of you who don't know, I deal primarily in consumer psychology for a living. I have a behavioral insights consulting agency, and we look at consumer experience journeys and a variety of other things. So I like to assess the overall purchase experience across a variety of touch points and really try and give my best assessment on how that company does in managing that consumer experience journey with you. And I will say, maybe because the simplicity of the product, there's a little bit more to speak to when we're doing something like a backpack that's a much more complicated product to use. But both these companies do a fairly decent job. I think there's certainly room for improvement, but I don't think there's anything egregious either. They were pretty straightforward. Sizing options were clearly indicated. Color options were clearly indicated. They had adequate pictures of all the different models. I think some more, having the weight and the material information more readily available. We'll get into the materials used in a later section, but I had to follow up independently with the companies and get them to send me that information because it's not available on their website. So I think a little bit more transparency would be helpful. Now, shipping is another part of purchase experience. And I got these products so long ago, I almost hesitate to even comment on it. I originally bought the Alaskan Guy Creations from Black Ovis, and I bought the Marsupial harness directly from Marsupial. I will say that both those retail experiences were very pleasant, didn't have any issues. I got what I ordered, showed up on time, no problems. So I would say overall a very satisfactory purchase experience. Nothing mind-blowing, nothing particularly noteworthy, but also nothing negatively noteworthy, which is good. Let's talk about American Bonus. So American Bonus is simply my way to indicate if these products are 100% made in America, because that's very important to individuals who live in the States. Now, both these products claim very strongly that they are 100% made in America, but I also couldn't find any information on their site to indicate whether that included every single element on the packs. After doing so many product reviews now and talking with a lot of owners of companies, what I have found is that it's very common for a couple small elements of a product to have to come from overseas. Like it's the only place where they can get a particular zipper, or the product's not available, stateside, or whatever the case. But they still do, all of their design and manufacturing and assembly in the States. So I can say confidently that is the case with both Marsupial and Alaska Guy Creations. They're definitely made in the USA. I cannot comment 100% whether every single square inch on these things comes from products that are in the States, but it's certainly very important to them that all their manufacturing and assembly stays in the States. So I think they deserve credit for that. Up next, Canadian Bonus. Now, this is a section where I like to give credit to companies who make products more affordable and easier to attain for Canadians. So normally what this means is some type of Canadian side shipping option, or some way to prepay duties, just some way to indicate that we're not going to get completely bent over when our package shows up, which is exactly what happens with 90% of companies. Unfortunately, there is no Canadian bonus for either of these items. As I mentioned, had to order Marsupial directly from Marsupial itself, and had to order Alaska Guy Creations from Black Ovis. So had to pay duty on both those packages, just the way it is. I think with these smaller companies, it's a little bit more difficult for them to get Canadian side distribution. Now, if I'm wrong on that and anybody is aware of where you can get Marsupial or AGC gear in Canada and save on the shipping, please list it in the comments below or shoot me a DM. I would love to know for future purposes. Up next, let's talk about overall capacity. So it's pretty easy to see right away that there's just more capacity in the Alaska Guy Creations than the Marsupial. These zippered pockets along the side are quite large and you can fit a lot of stuff inside them. And the max pocket along the bottom is super functional. Just to give you an idea, I actually pulled everything that was in this harness beside my binos, because this is my full-time hunting harness, and I have it all right here. So this is my eyepiece adapter for my Swaro binos. I have a hunk of ribbon for when I take a kill shot, pocket knife, wind checker, a spare archery release, 3 pairs of disposable earplugs. I just got back from a rifle hunt, a practice archery head, a elk call, a new Phelps Easy Sucker elk call, a pair of savable earplugs, a little thing of crazy glue, a full-size lens cloth, another set of savable earplugs, a mouth diaphragm for elk calling, and a dope chart for my rangefinder. And all of that was in here. And there's no way you're gonna fit that in the Marsupial. So Alaskan Guide Creations wins the overall capacity conversation, hands down. Now, the last thing that I want to mention about the capacity of is these 2 stretchable sleeve pockets on top of the lid. Now, some of you may know I lost my phone on a sheep hunt this summer, and the reason was, well, A, I'm an idiot, but B, I was still testing the Marsupial harness, so that was the one I was wearing. When I wear this harness, I always slide my phone in the top here. It's like a super snug fit. It never goes anywhere. I could like roll down a hill and it's not coming out. Because I didn't have this one and I had that one, there was no place to put my phone and I absentmindedly set it in a bad spot for a moment. Now, somebody did get in touch and say that Marsupial offers this kind of like shoulder attachment, which, while it's interesting and does provide a potential solution, you got to realize I'm also solo filming. So I'm already wearing a bunch of extra gear up here for GoPros and cotton carriers for cameras and all kinds of, so I don't actually have room to hold a phone up here. So this is one of my most favorite things about this harness. Also, you can hold your elk calls underneath here. Which I really like because the air gets in there so they don't sit in their own fluid all the time. So when they're wet from your mouth, you put it in here. By the time you walk around for a half an hour, you pull it out and it's dry again. So you're not getting unnecessary wear and tear on your elk calls. All right, and that, add up all those features, and that is why, for me, the Alaskan Guide Creations wins the capacity argument, hands down. Now, the Marsupial still does have some really nice additional capacity features. I'm gonna be honest though, these stretch pockets on the side do literally nothing for me. Like, you might fit a lighter in there. It is so tight, I can barely fit a bottle of wind checker in there. And once you get it in there, you can't even get it back out again. So you might be able to fit like a couple pieces of ribbon. But I wish these were zippered pockets, or I wish they had a little bit more volume, because right now, you probably just get rid of them. Like, they really serve no purpose for me. And I wore this thing for quite a long time and tried to find stuff that I would access on a regular basis. But these it's so tight, you can barely get your finger in there, let alone, like, I don't know how you would get both fingers in there to like actually pull something out. You can slide your phone down the back here if you want. I have found in reality, it doesn't work so well. Maybe it's just me, but when I hike, I get sweaty and I tend to sweat a lot up front. And so when this is tight against my chest, I'll pull my phone out and the screen is soaked all the time from sweat, which I'm not worried about it, the functionality of the phone, but the touchscreen just doesn't work for shit when it's soaking wet. So I found that kind of annoying, so I won't use that. But you could put some other things in here. What I don't like about this is that it's zippered on the Alaska Guide Creations. So lots of times I'll put my tags and like 4 spare bullets in the Alaska Guide Creations. Because this doesn't zipper closed, I don't trust it with things like tags, because I've had it before where I bent over and things just slid right out the top. So I will say that on the whole, these stretchy pockets are a big miss for me because they don't really add any additional reliable functionality. Up next, let's talk materials. So like I said, I had to touch base with both manufacturers in order to find out this information. But for the Alaska Guide Creations, they use two different materials. So for the solid colors, the Cryptek and the Multicam, they use a 500D Cordura. And for the Mossy Oak and the Real Tree, they used a brushed tricot. And I'm just guessing, but I'm assuming it's because of the printing of the Mossy Oak and the Real Tree. They don't offer 500D with those particular patterns printed on them, so they had to use a different material. Because I don't think there's anything superior about brushed tricot to 500D Cordura. In fact, I would argue the opposite. The 500D is the superior material. So I would actually keep that in mind if you're ordering this. Personally, I would stay away from the Mossy Oak and Real Tree options specifically for those reasons. Now, the Marsupial uses 4 different materials. They use a 500D nylon Cordura, a durable 4-way stretch nylon, a durable fleece lining, and then a pill-resistant spacer mesh. I am going to give the edge in this particular category to the Marsupial. And the reason for that is I think they're being a little bit more progressive. Now, sometimes if a fabric is working and if it's not broke, don't fix it. And I understand that, but I also think in order for us to advance the technology, the products that we use, we need to have companies that are willing to take some chances. And the stretchy fabric that Marsupial uses, they also use the same fabric on their pocket organizers. And I'm actually going to do a pocket organizer review here shortly because I've been running those same pocket organizers for the last year and a half. I really like this. They call it a durable 4-way stretch nylon. I don't know a bunch of the technical specs, but I really like it. And I like the fact that they've combined the 500D Cordura with this stretchy nylon where applicable. So in this category, Marsupial is going to take the edge. Let's talk construction. This is the first category where I'm going to have to give the two products a tie. Overall, and I've gone over these things with a fine-tooth comb, overall, the construction is almost identical and in a very positive way. I find the stitching is very high quality. All their stitches are finished and completed at the ends and looped back. They're using very high grade thread. You can't see any places where things have started to come undone. All the zippers are of really high quality. Like I noticed, all the seams are closed, double stitched wherever appropriate. All of the webbing is deeply embedded and heavily stitched. Like, these things are built like tanks. So overall, both these get a 1 because I think both companies have really knocked it out of the park. Fantastic construction quality. Harness systems. So again, I'm going to give the edge to Marsupial on this one. As I mentioned before, this is the older version of the harness, so I want to make sure that the critique I'm about to give may not be applicable to the new Generation L harness. However, after looking at lots of pictures of that harness, it looks to be that they haven't fundamentally changed the shape of the harness, so I have a feeling it's going to still do the same thing. This is a very small, nitpicky item, but no matter how I adjust the straps, the back of this harness rubs the back of my neck. Now, I always wear a hooded base layer, so as long as I pull that hooded base layer through and it kind of blocks the back of my neck, then I'm totally fine and it never bothers me. But if I'm wearing a t-shirt or just out scouting and don't have some kind of hood, this will rub the back of my neck and it really does bother me. And there's nothing I can do with, I've shortened the front straps as much as I can. Like, there's nothing I can do to get it to ride back down a little bit further. And like, it's not the end of the world. It certainly doesn't cause any, injury or slow you down. Like, it really is just kind of annoying. But because this kind of exaggerated V shape on the harness for the marsupial, it actually doesn't close until it's already down your back. So it stays below the base of your neck, and you don't get this same neck rubbing that you do with the Alaskan Guide Creations harness. Now let's talk fitting. Alaskan Guide Creations is going to take the edge in the fitting department for one simple reason: more adjustability. I find, depending on your size, you might find the straps a little bit short on the marsupial harness. I'm 6'1", 250 right now. These front straps are fully extended. They don't get any longer, and I've only got, let's say 3.5 inches left on the side straps. And that's me wearing it very snug. If I wanted any more additional room, I'm gonna lose even more. Whereas, I've still got 8 inches left on the side straps and like a full 10 inches left on the front straps with the Alaskan Guide Creations. Other than that, fitting is super straightforward with these things. The one pro tip I will give you is always leave one of your side straps attached. Because then when you put an arm through and put your head through, you've only got one strap left, and it reduces confusion and twisted straps quite a lot. But other than that, the fitting of both of these is really easy and straightforward. Up next, accessories. Okay, first, let's go through all the accessories available for both platforms. So the Alaskan Guide Creations, rangefinder pouches, rain cover, accessory adapters for radios, hydration pack, scout backpack, bow hook, bear spray, bullet patch, phone holder, and sidearm holster. For the marsupial, you got zippered pouches, holsters, rain cover, radio pouch, shoulder strap pockets, bear spray pouch, an additional Razco Kydex holster, and a hydration pack. So even though Alaskan Guide Creations technically has a couple more accessories available, I'm going to give the edge in the accessories department to Marsupial because of the functionality of their accessories. I've heard from quite a few people who run the holsters and the bear spray. I'll be honest, I don't run either. That they prefer the attachment and the access mechanisms of the Marsupial to the Alaskan Guide Creations. And in fact, I know of 2 guys on the Mindful Review communities who left the Alaskan Guide Creations platform solely because the sidearm holster and the bear spray holder was that much nicer on the Marsupial. So again, this is definitely a personal preference item, but Marsupial is going to take the edge in the accessories category. Now let's talk about noise. So this is another category where the 2 items have tied, and I've given them both a 2 because they both have noisy elements and quiet elements. I give the edge to the Alaskan Guide Creations on the lid because you can literally open it almost perfectly silently, and this makes next to no noise. Now, it's not terribly noisy, but when you close this, you're really hard, you can like really finagle it down, but if you're just walking along and you go to close this, like, it is going to make noise. However, that being said, I find the facing on the Cordura is noisier than the facing on the stretch nylon that I believe is actually over top of some Cordura on the Marsupial. So quieter lid on the Alaska Guide Creation, quieter fabric on the Marsupial. Now let's talk about lid functionality. Now here's where I'm willing to admit this may be more of a personal bias simply because I've lived with the Alaskan Guide Creations longer, but I personally prefer the locking mechanism of the lid on it over the Marsupial, simply because when it's locked closed, it's locked. It can't open. It doesn't move anywhere. You can crawl across the ground. It will never open. And when you do go to open it, it's super quiet. With the Marsupial, when it's tight against your chest and you're wearing a bunch of stuff, I do find it kind of annoying to like make room to like pull this out sometimes. Now, this is much easier to operate one-handed. Now this one, you can just leave this off and gravity will keep the lid closed and you can just pop it open. But I will say Marsupial is nicer for one-handed operation, but my preference for lid closure mechanisms, like sometimes simpler is just better in my opinion. They're both really fully enclosed, but I would say I have a little bit more confidence in this system because of how much more it overlaps. Some of the corners here, when this closes, sometimes it doesn't always overlap and you gotta pull this fabric out over the edge, and that kind of bugs me a little bit. So yeah, super picky on this one, but I'm gonna give a slight edge to the Alaskan Guide Creations in the lid reliability department. All right, now let's talk about Optic Fit. All right, so there's a few features that I wanted to be actually wearing the harness in order to demonstrate, and so I might as well talk about them all in this one particular category. So first and foremost, for Optic Fit, I'm gonna give the edge to Alaskan Guide Creations for two reasons. One, it's a slightly bigger chamber, and two, I find them a little bit easier to pull in and out, and that could actually be a function of the same fact that there's a little bit more room. But I also think the fleece lining in the Marsupial can get kind of snug sometimes. But the other nice thing about the Alaskan Guide Creation, so here's a pair of NL 12 by 42s, and you can see like no problem at all, zero resistance, very quiet. There's also a fleece lining. It's not fleece, it's almost like the back of neoprene or something. But very quiet, lots of room. Now, the other thing that I like is that I wear this additional forehead attachment. And on the Alaskan Guide Creations, you don't even notice that it's on. So put those in there. It's not deformed in any way and it fits perfectly fine. Now the other thing that I can do with these is I also run an outdoorsman's tripod adapter, which sticks out down the bottom. You can spin it to one side, but I can also, stick those in here. And because of the shape of the back, it doesn't deform and it doesn't poke into me at all. And I'm going to go over that on the Marsupial in a moment. Finally, and this is a big one for me, rangefinder accessibility. So I run this little tether cable here. Let's attach it to my rangefinder. I would normally have my rangefinder in here like this. This is zipped closed. Now, it is a zippered attachment on this, so there is some noise. However, if you take your time, you're not going to get busted. Now, here's what I really like about the Alaskan Guide Creations. I do a lot of archery hunting. As soon as I get close to being on a stalk, I open this. And I just leave it open. Because now, with no noise at all, I can just take this in and out quite easily. And in fact, sometimes I'll even just hang it. Like if I'm walking in and then I can just grab it, range, and drop. Grab it, range, and drop. And it makes no noise at all. And there's even enough resistance here that even if I'm like leaning over, it rarely pops out. And if it does, I'm backed up with the tether. So I really like that. And the other thing is having enough room under here for my a second archery release aid, I really like. quite a lot. I'll also comment on kind of the fitment of each pack. The other reason why I like both of these harnesses is that they're chest harnesses. They're not stomach harnesses. You'll see some harnesses are meant to ride down low. I don't like that. Just for me, I find it like constricts my breathing and it's uncomfortable and I feel like there's something sitting on my stomach. I like it high. Like if these are the bottom of my pecs, I want it on my chest, sitting up high. So yeah, again, we were talking about lid functionality earlier. I love that this just opens like this. Where's my phone? So this is how I use my phone. I'll walk around with it like this all day. I need my phone, pull it out, do what I'm gonna do, check my maps, pop it back in. And then, so like archery elk hunting is probably one of my favorite kinds of hunting. I will have a mouth call in this top sleeve and my phone down here. And that way I'm on Onyx, I'm checking my points, I'm on my phone. Archery mouth call doesn't move. Put this back in here, put this in here, call it out, bring it back out. Like I said, this is breathable and this keeps it all right here. My wind checker fits in here, no problem. And I'll have a bunch of other stuff in there, but I can just pop this open, grab my wind checker, pop it back in, pop the zipper down, no problem. And so you start to see how it's more of like a system than just a Bino harness, because that was my issue when I moved to the Marsupial, is that, and I'll do more for like a wrap up section at the end. We only got 3 or 4 more categories to go here, but this is what started to develop for me. I was like, this is a suite of solutions that just takes care of a lot of stuff for me. When I moved to the Marsupial, I was like, oh, now I have to find, where am I going to put my mouth call? Oh, right, now where do I put my phone? Oh, where's my wind checker going to go? Where's my spare archery release going to go? Like, now I got to find places for all this other stuff. So even though there is this like attraction or sexiness to the minimalism of the Marsupial, in the reality of the situation at the end of the day is that you still have to solve all those other problems, and now you're just left finding other solutions for those problems. Now, again, those are very solvable things, and they even sell accessories that would deal with all of those. Just with my hunting style and preference, that's why this kind of like all-in-one solution was better for me. But again, let's go back to Optic Fit, and I'll do a wrap-up in a minute here. Because I am able to keep the Swaro eyepiece and my Outdoorsman's adapter on. Also, you can fit 15s in here. You can't fit 15s in a medium Marsupial. And so the fact that it will fit 10 by 42s, nice and snug, lots of room, eye caps fully extended, no problem. And I will say that's the other thing. When I'm just walking around, I rarely actually clip this closed. It's only when I'm like about to go do something, or I'm going on a big hike, or I'm not going to be, glassing for a while. I normally just walk around like this, and then I just pop and grab them. So yeah, there's some additional features that I really like about the AGC harness. Okay, next, let's talk some of the fit and fitment features for the Marsupial as well as the Optic Fit. So same 12 by 42 NL Pures, no problem. In and out, no problem. Again, the additional kind of forehead rest feature definitely protrudes the front of the pack a little bit more than if it wasn't there. And the same is true. This pack is much slimmer than the Alaskan Guide Creations. And so I can't wear my Outdoorsman's tripod adapter. I have to take it off and kind of stuff it in one of these bottom pockets, or wear it in my hip belt on my backpack. Yet again, which is like highly personal. For a lot of people who run different adapter systems, that's not going to be an issue. But again, as we were talking about before, when I'm just wearing a t-shirt, this is not a problem. This opens fine. But when you start having like a raincoat on, or if you're in the winter time and you got puffy jackets on and you have a bunch of stuff, I do find this like internal flap mechanism can get a little annoying from time It's time. Okay, let's have a little discussion about rangefinder accessibility, because this was probably one of the things that really swayed me back over to the Alaskan Guide Creations. So again, it's got the same pocket, and again, just wearing a t-shirt inside with nothing else, this is fine, but normally I've got a bunch of other stuff strapped to me, and I've got a backpack harness, shoulder harness coming right here, kind of sucking this tight, and I've had it before where like I actually can't get my finger in to open this. Again, not a big deal, but kind of an annoyance. Now here's my issue again. When this is tight, I find this, like, it's not that it's impossible. It's a little annoying. I find getting it in and out quietly is a problem. Now, again, you could do the same thing that I said with the Alaskan Guide Creations and just kind of leave it dangling at times, but you don't have the option. I guess you could kind of prop this open and maybe just have it kind of half in when you get close on your stock so that you would have, you know, better, but again, see, like that's going to want to close as soon as I take my hands off of it. It definitely works, but I would say that put a gun to my head and tell me to choose, I'm picking the Alaska Guide Creations because the functionality is just that little bit better for my personal tastes. All right, let's talk durability. Now this is kind of unfair because like I said, I've run this harness for 6 years and this harness for a year. But the thing I'm about to share actually happened on the second or third year I owned this harness. On the back, you can see this mesh pocket is sewn into the back. And then where the kind of side strap gets clicked in, sewn into here, is actually sewn into this mesh and then doesn't seem to be sewn in again to this other section. And what happened is this mesh ripped. Now, it still works. It's never failed on me completely, and I probably could just take it to a seamstress and get this done back up. Now, I will say I will give the edge to Marsupial for durability simply because I have to go on what's in front of me. And I've had a sewing failure or a seam failure on the Alaska Guide Creations. I have not on the Marsupial. And I'm looking at that Marsupial. It's showing no signs of wear and tear. I would be really interested to talk to these guys and see if this is still how they sew this. And if they've not found, I would like to see this webbing embedded directly into like the core seam of the pack itself. And then that way you're not just relying on this mesh being sewn to the back of the harness. So, long story short, Marsupial takes the edge on durability. Impact protection. So I wanted to try and gauge impact protection, and I would love to do this more technically at a later date when I have some more sophisticated equipment at my disposal. But instead of that, or in lieu of that, I'm just gonna do my best to make an educated guess. Now, both of these feel similarly padded in that they do have a thin layer of padding between the internal fleece fabrics and the external Cordura-like fabrics. So that kind of cancels each other out. Now, the form factor of the Marsupial feels a little bit firmer. However, I'm going to give the edge and drop protection to the Alaskan Guide Creations because of all the extraneous pockets. I feel like it's a second layer of protection. Like if you were to actually physically drop these, it's going to have to hit that pocket and then hit the internal pocket. Like hit the external, then the internal pocket before really jarring the glass that's on the inside. So take that with a grain of salt because that's really more of an opinion than fact. But if I had to choose, I'm going to give the edge to the Alaskan Guide Creations for impact protection. Up next, let's talk water resistance. So based purely on personal experience and running both of these on some significantly wet hunts, both winter hunts and summer and fall hunts, I'm going to say they are equally kind of water resistant or lack the equal amount of water resistance. Neither of these is going to keep your binos completely dry if it's pissing rain. And even if it's only mildly raining, from you opening and closing and taking binos out and having them wet and put them away, you're introducing moisture into the system. They are mildly water resistant, let's say. But I don't know, I've never bothered with the rain cover for my binos. That seems like a kind of asinine thing to do. Like you're opening them and closing them all the time. Like I said, unless you dry your binos off every time you stick them away, you're still going to be introducing moisture into there. So it's just one of those things I think you just have to live with. Now, I will say, they are also somewhat problematic to dry out because they have this like multi-layered construction to them, in that they've got a face fabric, they've got an internal fabric, they've got some padding, they got some, external pockets. They do not dry out unless it's like really hot naturally. And I find what I have to do is like take the harness off, prop the lid open and kind of point it at the sun or point it into the breeze so that air and sun can move into that internal pocket and kind of evacuate the moisture. But you got to be intentional like that. If you just keep wearing them, they'll never really, and like every time you take your binos out, you're going to have to give them a rub with a lens wipe because you're going to have some moisture accumulated on the objective and the ocular lenses. Up next, hardware. So again, we're going to give this one to Marsupial, with the caveat being I haven't seen the upgraded Alaska Guide Creations hardware, but the buckles are just a little bit nicer on the Marsupial. They are just so satisfying, like such little pressure, nice firm click, and then they just pop right out. Like you don't gotta fight them at all. Like it's beautiful. The auto locks are like firm, but you don't bust your thumb when you're trying to open them. Yeah, just really impressed at the quality of the buckles on the Marsupial. Remember, I had to upgrade the buckles on the Alaska Guide Creations, so I really would like to see the newer buckles, and maybe I could do a better head-to-head comparison. Final category, archery compatibility. So this is the last category where I gave them a tie. Now the reason the Marsupial won out in one dimension is the slim form factor. I don't shoot traditional, but I know some people had issues with thicker bino harnesses getting in the way of shooting. I shoot a compound bow, and I can shoot with both of these. But I will say that based on all reports, more people seem to be more comfortable with the Marsupial in archery circumstances. However, because of my preference for rangefinder accessibility that I mentioned earlier, I gotta say that in the real world practice, I like archery hunting better with the Alaska Guide Creations because of that additional functionality. Overall, I'm gonna say that these even out because I think depending on your hunting style, these are both highly compatible for archery. And again, depending on individual preference, one of these is gonna win out over the other one for you. All right, let's look at the final rankings. Okay, so here we go. Overall, we assessed 21 individual categories and we scored 18 of those categories. So the Alaskan Guide Creations came out on top with a score of 25. So remember, the lower score is the better. The Marsupial had a 27. So if we were going to give these a percentage ranking, you could say that the Alaskan Guide Creations scored an 84 and the Marsupial scored a 78. So there's only a difference of 2 points or 6% between these two harnesses. So to say that we're being nitpicky here, I think is a pretty aggressive understatement. Like, these both fared extremely well during all my infield testing. Yeah, highly recommend both of these. But again, as I was alluding to before, this review is really about sharing or highlighting the elements of each harness that are going to make it easier for you to decide which one is going to work better for you because of your own hunting style and preference. So again, the way that I like to hunt, having everything kind of on my chest and close and not minding like a bigger, bulkier item. I'm a big, bulky guy. That Alaskan Guide Creations really does it for me. I feel comfortable. I've got some extra stuff. I've got some extra room. Everything's in one place. I never lose stuff. It's great. But if you're more of a minimalist guy and you want a smaller form factor, and maybe you tend to keep more stuff in your cargo pockets or just different areas, I mean, the Marsupial is the one that's going to do it for you. Also, I think if you're a sidearm guy or you're a bear spray guy, the functionality of those two accessory systems with the Marsupial, just based on what I've been told from people I trust, is probably going to be enough to swing you over. So before we wrap up, I promised you could win one of these harnesses. So primarily because the Alaskan Guide Creations is 6 years old, and I would feel like a bit of a dick giving away a 6-year-old harness, I'm going to give away the Marsupial harness. Also, I really only need one harness, and I love the way that the Alaskan Guide Creations works for me, so I might as well keep it. And to be honest, I know that for most people, the Marsupial is the more popular of the two, so I think more people are going to get excited about a giveaway for a Marsupial harness. So I'm going to give away the Marsupial harness. It's still in perfect shape. It's mint. There's nothing wrong with it. No rips, no tears, no stains. It's beautiful. Now, only one thing you got to do to participate. Be a member of Mindful Reviews. If you are already a member, you're already registered. I am really going to hold off or resist doing one of these like giveaways for new members because I really think that disrespects the people who've belonged to a community from the beginning. And it's more important to me to show respect to the individuals who've trusted me from the beginning than it is to try to entice new members. Yes, I want new members. Yes, I want to grow to the community. But if I had to prioritize one or the other, I'm going to prioritize loyalty to my current members because they've been there since the beginning. That being said, everybody's going to get an equal shot at this. If you joined today or 3 months ago, doesn't matter. So every member of Mindful Reviews, so head over to mindful-reviews.com, buy a membership. As long as you belong, monthly, annual, lifetime, doesn't matter. 2 weeks after this goes up, I will pick a winner and I will ship it to you. Anywhere in the world, I'll foot the bill. Okay, we went over a ton of information. If you think I got anything wrong, if you'd like to add some of your own insights, or if you have any further questions for me, jay@mindfulhunter.com or on Instagram at mindful_hunter. I love doing these reviews. If you want to participate in the future reviews by telling me what you want to see reviewed and what categories you want me to look at, please go sign up over at Mindful Reviews. And until next time, thanks for tuning in.